All righty. Can everybody hear us just fine? We'll be checking the chat periodically. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. All righty. Welcome everybody to our camp leader meeting. We are having fun with the technology component here. So if you're having any issues, just let us know in the chat. We'll do our best to make amends. This meeting is being recorded, so that way the information can be shared beyond this live meeting itself. Otherwise, for introductions, we'll start here to my right.
My name is Lee Binkley. I'm from Monroe, Wisconsin. Been involved with Canyon Camp since as a scout back in 1963. Some of the staff since 1968. Worked in different positions at camp, but certainly like everybody else, I'm glad to be here to try to get scouting back to Canyon Camp and other locations for you this upcoming summer. Lee Binkley.
Thank you, Lee. And this is?
I'm Dick Reynolds. I'm from Rockford, Illinois. Originally from Wisconsin. I've been on the camp staff since 1980. Looking forward to the summer and all the possibilities of what we're going to be able to do this summer, and hoping that with the plans that we have in place that Scouts will have a great time this summer.
Thank you, Dick and Lee. And my name is Seth Kannarr. I'm serving as your program director for the summer, and we have a PowerPoint presentation prepared for you all to kind of explain all of the COVID guidelines and procedures that we are faced with in administering this summer. So stay tuned as we screen share. Can everybody see our slide just fine? Sweet. Thank you everybody for quick responses in the chat. Much appreciated. All righty. So we've gone through our introductions already. The big question, why are we here? We've been in the midst of a large pandemic over the last year or so, and unfortunately meant that we were not able to offer summer camp last summer. However, we're very excited for this summer where we have the opportunity to be with all of each other in our scouting community at camp. And so with the current COVID procedures and guidelines in place, and as they change every other day, we're trying to make sure that we're all prepared to run camp as we need to. What's the same? We still have a pandemic and we still have local government and laws to set these regulations we need to follow. And thus we must have our program prepared for that. What is new? We are providing to you all 2 sets of plans for what's going to happen. Right now we're in phase 4 bridge. Things are leaning towards phase 5 of the COVID mitigation plan. And so we have for you all a very detailed plan for phase 4. I apologize for the words. And an idea of what's going to come if we go into phase 5 for the summer. And so important to note that these COVID guidelines and restrictions are by the state of Illinois mandates. We update the policies as we can, as they come out to us. And overall, safety is our #1 priority here. A presentation overview here is the different kinds of slides and topics we'll be covering over the course of this PowerPoint. COVID guidelines, going through a pod schedule, looking at program, specific logistics like Showerhouse, dining hall meals, campsites, visitors night, trading post, and finishing things off with discussion of phase 5, additional resources for you all, and ending with a Q&A session. So under phase 4/phase 4 bridge, which we're experiencing right now, there is a face mask mandate. As of yet, when 2 of the 3 conditions apply, whether you're indoors, you are not socially distanced, and you're not vaccinated, you need to wear a face mask. If you are outside at camp and you are vaccinated and you're away from people, you're good to go and not wearing a mask. But otherwise, anytime you're indoors and not socially distanced, we are going to be asking you all to wear a mask under these guidelines. Social distancing of 6 feet will apply, and we'll be having daily temperature checks and COVID symptom screening that will be happening. As of yet, our plan is to be doing this at the dining hall when scouts come through to pick up their meal. We'll go over more information with this later. We'll be doing those daily temperature checks then. We'll be also implementing a pods schedule where each pod or a group of cohort of scouts and leaders can only be 30 people all together. And so we're going into those plans now. For the pod assignments, to find out what pod your troop will be in, you'll be assigned this during Sunday check-in at the office when you arrive at camp. Each pod could be 1 troop. It could be 2 troops combined if they're smaller, or if you have a very large troop, you might be split into 2 pods. Unfortunately, that's just due to the nature of it being 30 individuals that we have to comply with that. These pods will share a campsite or a campsite group together for the week, and the goal is to be isolated, to separate from other pods or other groups, minimize the potential risk of spreading COVID-19 if anyone is infected. So each pod may not intermingle, and thus the camp program is designed to prevent this. The camp staff will serve as individual pod as well, keeping distance. As of right now with phase 4 guidelines, there will be no large camp-wide events, no visitors into camp due to this pods model. The pods are going to be named after letters of the Greek alphabet. This is just a fun thing. But the 10 pod assignments will be alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, and kappa. Here is an overview of a tentative draft of the program schedule. Don't get too lost here trying to look and figure out everything. We'll be going over some more specifics later, and things could always change prior to your troop arriving here at camp. And so again, this is for phase 4 specifically. One of the main things to note, the green boxes in the center are indicating the actual program slots where the individual pods will be traveling to various program areas to actually take merit badges and spend time with the staff at each program area as you are used to. Each session is 2 hours, and it's set up that there's A and B. And so of the 10 program areas we have, they will cycle through twice over the course of a week. Due to the pod system as well, we cannot have pods intermingling when it comes to things like the shower house. And so you'll see on the schedule that there's actually shower sessions scheduled for each pod. And also, when it comes to things that are not programmed, such as dinner, or if we're having an evening program stuff, that's going to be meeting at the island. And so each pod will have an individual island where they will meet at in the main area of camp. This should be around the dance ring and around the dining hall, and the specific locations we are working on to make sure it's efficient and works best. But you will have a specific designated spot for each pod to live at when you're not in your campsite. Looking a little deeper into the actual program sessions, as I mentioned before, there are 10 pods and we'll have 10 program areas, and it's set that every single pod will have the opportunity to go to each program area twice over the course of a week. So 20 total sessions, 2 hours per session, 2 sessions per area, 4 hours total per area. And so for an example, let's say you are troop 22. Troop 22 is assigned to the alpha pod. And so during that session 1 on the previous schedule you had just seen in the previous slide, you'd be going to the game/trading post section. And so that session, that's kind of actually like our free time one in a way. We'll have the opportunity for scouts to do gaga ball. They'll be able to do human foosball, which has now been moved to the front of camp, and the opportunity to spend time and relax near the trading post where they can buy goodies, snacks, ice cream, soda, gummy worms, whatever you may. The next session, they'll be going to handicraft/the health lodge where they can pick their program options. And we have an upcoming slide to kind of detail the specifics of how we will figure out what individual program each pod wants to do at each program area. And so each pod works their way across sessions 1 through 10. And it's all set up that, again, every pod has the opportunity to be in every program area twice. For the program sign up, and again, I want to stress that this is a tentative draft, that each area, there's a limited number of staff members and there's a lot of scouts, and we have a lot of merit badges and great activities to offer. And so we have to have, in a way, a sign up system to decide what the pod wants to work on as a group. And so during Sunday check-in, the SPL will be tasked with working with their pod to assess the needs and desires of their group to help make the pod's program choices. For an example, let's say that pod alpha, they, at the pool or lakefronts, they would have to pick one of those 3 merit badges listed. They can pick one of canoeing, kayaking, or rowing merit badge. In some areas like this one have pre-selected options where those will be available regardless. And to clarify, let's say a pod, let's say Troop 22 or the Alpha pod decides they want to do kayaking merit badge. The scouts in that pod will get to choose between free swim, instructional swim, swimming merit badge, or kayaking merit badge. So there will be individual options for the scouts to choose within the parameters that the group decides they want to sign up for. With another example, if you look at the nature program area, it says pick 3 of the list. And so let's say the pod decides that we want to do environmental science, geology, and weather merit badge. And so let's say Johnny Scout, one of the younger scouts in your group, decides he wants to do weather merit badge, while an older scout wants to work in environmental science. That's totally okay, because they are working within those set of 3 options. And so there will be options of choices available, but the pod as a group will have to decide the main options for which they can pick. For specific details and questions for that, definitely stay tuned for the Q&A session at the end where you can ask specifics of these questions. For phase 4, looking at the shower house, I mentioned before the pod shower schedule. It's to avoid intermingling of separate pods, and every pod will have dedicated shower times. These shower sessions will not overlap with the aquatics program sessions, again, to keep those pods from intermingling. And those individuals, though, however, may catch an extra shower during their aquatics program sessions. Let's say Johnny is at the pool for a session, and before he needs to get in the pool, he needs to take a shower. And so let's say his assigned shower session was the day before, he's gonna have the opportunity to get an extra shower. So there might be more opportunities than you see with that schedule. The shower house will be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized every day. It's important to us to make sure we're providing a safe and clean experience. And we will maintain the 3 showers partitions we've had the last previous summer, where we have a male youth side, a male adult side, and a female shower house, all separated. For phase 4 with dining hall and meals, scouts and leaders will eat meals outside the dining hall in their assigned islands. Due to social distancing and the nature of our dining hall, we are unable to account for potentially 200 scouts altogether at once within our dining hall. Thus, why we're doing these islands. The scouts and leaders will be served in the dining hall on disposable plates. Basically, we'll have a pod walk in, they'll walk back out, go to their island, and it's gonna be a walk-in, walk-out model. As of yet, our meal menu will be mostly traditional. We're working on specific details, of course. It'll be very similar to other summers. We're gonna provide tasty, healthy, delicious, good food as always, just with the different environments. The dining hall use will be a little limited compared to usual for protecting the kitchen staff. For example, all you union leaders on here that love to have your morning coffee, we still plan to provide coffee for you all, but the logistics and details of how we get that coffee to you may be different. So stay tuned for that. With the pod islands, each pod of less than or about 30 individuals will have an assigned island of canopy, shelters, and tables. In the main area, again, around the dance ring, the dining hall, and each pod can kind of take pride having their own little self-titled island. You guys can name it what you want, what your group is, but it is your home base. And so you get to have a little fun with it. Things might be different this summer, but they're going to be fun as usual. Camp meals will be eaten at those assigned islands, and the islands will serve as a gathering place for any camp-wide events. And so, for example, if we were presenting a program on a Wednesday night, for example, from the dance ring, ideally everybody in their individual islands will be able to participate and listen with those activities from their islands. And during non-storm emergencies where it's safe outside, but we're having a camp emergency, we'll have pods meet at their islands to maintain social distancing. With the campsite, as of right now, the state of Illinois guidelines say that there is a 1-to-1 person to tent ratio. And this may change, of course. We're hearing that there are more updates coming in the pipeline, and so things might change by camp. But as of yet, we're looking at 1 scout per tent. So we are encouraging troops right now to bring personal tents for half of their scouts. And so if you have a troop of 20 scouts, there's going to be a certain amount of, the normal canvas tents you have in the campsite ahead of time. And so you might have to bring 10 tents to make sure that every scout's 1-to-1 ratio. Additionally, troops are encouraged to bring additional canopy shelters to supplement their own dining flies to ensure if they want to make sure social distancing is accurate in their campsite. And additional solutions such as a curtain divider in each canvas tent to potentially allow 2 scouts to share a tent is being looked into. We do not have specific details at this time, but again, stay tuned to let you know if you don't need to bring additional tents. Some campsites do share latrines up on the hill, and so the camp staff will be sanitizing latrines daily to make sure that we are, again, staying safe between the intermingling of pods at camp. Some more specific COVID procedures. Pre-arrival expectations, we are asking that our scouts and leaders do self-checks for COVID symptoms and try to quarantine for 10 days prior to arrival at camp. However, if you are fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after your second dose, fully effective and everything, it's not as necessary to ensure going through the check process and quarantine since you have been fully vaccinated. Use your own discretion to make sure that you are healthy coming to camp. We will have daily screening. Scouts and leaders will receive temperature checks as they enter the dining hall for meals every day. And the leaders should work with the scouts and staff to monitor possible symptoms to make sure that we are all healthy and safe at camp. Our quarantine procedures, if we have a scout or a leader exhibiting COVID symptoms, the camp leadership, Dick Lee and I are going to work to make sure that we are isolating scouts in a camp building where they can be taken care of until we get a COVID test. And so the plan is to have a rapid action test so that way make sure that we're keeping camp with 0 COVID this summer. For our Sunday check-in, our tentative plans that there will be an assigned arrival time for your troop. This may be a little different than previous summers where we gave a time window for which troops can show up. But with how the whole system works, with everybody moving through, we may be assigning troops to show up at a specific smaller time window. And so we'll communicate those specific times to you in advance if that stays true. After the troop will arrive, the normal getting out of the vehicle, making sure scouts have what they need will happen. We'll make sure they have a unit leader check in at the office where you'll receive your pod and campsite assignment, and all the discussion of protocols, procedures, paperwork will be taken care of there as per usual. We will have health checks at the health lodge, the normal going through the medical physicals, but also COVID screening. The troop photo will happen, program sign up. This is where the sheet that the individual pod will work together with their SPL to fill out. So that way the scouts know what merit badges they have the option to pick for the week. That will be due after the campfire that evening. So they have Sunday evening to work together to fill that out. The plan is to have swim checks at camp. We're working through the logistic details of to make sure how we can do that efficiently with the time and the schedule to make sure it doesn't have any interference, and that way it's safe for each pod. There'll be time to set up campsite, and as always, there'll be a flag ceremony, dinner, we'll go over emergency procedures, the camp tour, and then to close things off on our Sunday, our great opening campfire. For phase 4 with our visitors night in OA, under phase 4 guidelines, we cannot host visitors at camp. It's a bit heartbreaking for some of us, as it's one of the highlights of the week to be able to have parents and any of our camp volunteers and friends of camp to be able to come in and see what's going on. But as of right now, we will not be able to do that. Not a traditional visitors night. We will still host Native American dancing, potentially a Vespers activity, and an OA call at this time. So our Wednesday night program will still be robust, just a little different than previous years. With Ordeal, we will have an OA call out, but there will not be an overnight ordeal experience. So the scouts will get to find out they've been selected to join the Ordeal Scouting Honor Society, but they will not complete their entire ordeal experience at camp at that time. Right now, future ordeal ceremonies will happen at our fall conclave or other Walapu Lodge events. And of course, if your troop is from outside of the Blackhawk Area Council, you'd be doing your ordeal ceremonies outside of council as always. With our phase 4 leader meetings, it will be a little different in the summer because we want to make sure that the leaders in each pod aren't intermingling the same. And so my plan is to host outdoor office hours, maybe an assigned time where each pod or individual troop can provide or have unit leaders come meet with me. We'll go over any announcements or updates to make sure everything's all good. So we're in good communication for the summer. It just might be a little different. You might also be receiving paper slips from me. So be ready at any time to have me run by and give you a paper slip with some announcements. Updates from area directors will be shared during those pod sessions with me and or given with paper slips from individual area directors. As of right now, we're not planning to do SPL meetings under phase 4. Updates for them will be shared with your unit leaders, and we're going to be asking all of our camp leaders to work with their SPLs over the week to make sure that we are giving leadership and working with our youth to provide a great experience. More details may come on that. We might find a way to be able to do SPL meetings safely. It all depends on the regulations. With our trading post, we will be having a limited capacity due to the size of the building. We're right now estimating about 6 scouts or scouters indoors at a time. And the trading post will be available during that game's trading post 2-hour session of program that each pod will get to experience twice a week. There will be additional trading post time assigned to each pod in the evenings, where just your pod will have the opportunity to come in and purchase what they may. Stay tuned for that, but we're excited to have our trading post up and going as per usual. This is where we're transitioning a bit here in regards to our presentation. We've been discussing phase 4/bridge guidelines for the previous 10 slides or so. And so now if Illinois moves to phase 5 guidelines, we have some draft plans in place for what we want to do with COVID safety at camp, but the specifics are still going to be coming directly from the CDC, state of Illinois, and any guidelines put out towards us. So this is non-binding. This is what we have in plan. When indoors, we still plan to have face mask use ongoing, just to make sure that we're protecting those who are not vaccinated, and social distancing of 3 feet. When outdoors, the specifics are being determined, but there's a chance that we might not have specific regulations for that beyond social distancing potentially. Phase 5 for us, when it comes to offering a safe camp program, does not mean 0 restrictions. It means lessen restrictions. And so we want camp to be as usual as possible, but we want to make sure we're keeping all of our scouts safe. That's the #1 priority for us. Temperature checks and quarantine procedures will remain in place under phase 5, and scouts are encouraged to be safe and mindful during program activities with others, especially in regards to those who are vaccinated and those who are not. For a program, if we move to phase 5, we will not be sticking with the pod schedule. Normally, during a normal summer, we have scouts do an a la carte model where Johnny Scout decides what he wants to do at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 2, 3, 4. And with a pod schedule, it's a little different. And so with phase 5, we plan to return to a traditional program structure where scouts will choose which merit badges they individually want to take. We will not have pre-registration online for sign up, just due to the nature of how much time is coming before camp. And we don't know when or if we will be able to move into phase 5 for any of our weeks during the summer. We'll have our meals in the dining hall with sanitation procedures in place is the plan with phase 5. We plan to have a visitors night. It might look a little different, but we plan to have it. Having a fuller camp-wide games, troops will have the opportunity to interact with each other more and not stay over 30 feet apart. Won't have a shower schedule, and open camp would return. And so in regards to program, it'd be very exciting to be in phase 5 where we can stick with the program we've known and loved over the previous 84 years at Canyon Camp. Our next steps. If for any particular week of camp, we are allowed by the state of Illinois to host a traditional camp program with phase 5, we plan to notify all of our units at least 7 days in advance. Meaning that let's say we go into phase 5 July 1st. We plan to let that group of campers coming in, let's say during week 3, know in advance that, hey, we are actually able to do a phase 5 program schedule. So that way it's not a surprise when our troops show up. Of course, we're working with a schedule. We don't get the plan, but we want to make sure we're communicating with you all in advance. As of yet, the state of Illinois hopes to enter phase 5 on June 11th. If this holds true, we may be hosting a traditional program starting week 1. So stay tuned, be hopeful, keep wearing your mask, social distancing so we can get out of this together. All of these policies, guidelines, procedures, they're very dynamic and they might change by tomorrow. They could be changing today during this meeting, who knows? The updates will come slowly. And as they come, we will do our best to be prepared and have these plans in place and communicate to you all as soon as possible. And just in general, we do thank you for your patience and understanding with all of this. An additional request, we are seeking additional canopy and tent shelters to borrow for this summer. So if you have any access to one we can use to help with setting up our pod islands in the main area camp, please contact Lee Binkley with the phone number here on the screen. This is a telethon. This is where you call in and donate the money. Otherwise, a scout is helpful. Please and thank you. If you have canopies, please let Lee know. It'd be very helpful for us. Additional resources on the Canyon Camp website. We do have a page for COVID updates. So if you want to see all of the latest updates all together in one place, please go to Canyon Camp BSA to our COVID-19 and Canyon Camp page. If you want to directly view the phase 4 guidelines from the state of Illinois that we're working with, it's available here with this link. And we have a handy dandy Black Hawk Area Council Camp COVID Mitigations Guide, hopefully coming to your email inboxes soon. Lee, also known as Ivana, is displaying this for us. So this is a paper copy. We plan to be sending the specifics out to you in this guide in a future email. We're making sure everything's exactly as perfect as we can for the current guidelines we have. So you will be having that with additional information about COVID procedures. And now this is for our question and answer session. I see that some questions have been coming in, getting a lot of comments. On the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A button. And so feel free to click on that and send your questions accordingly. Dick, Lee, and I are going to work together here to answer your questions. So send them in. Okay. Looks like we have a couple questions coming in already. I'm going to go through these in order. Are swim checks required at camp, or will troop records of swim tests be accepted to reduce staff load? That's a great question. Dick, Lee, I believe our plan right now is that with the current BSA policy, we have to have swim checks happen at camp. They cannot be done in advance. Even if it's a perfect record, and Scout is trustworthy, we believe you, we're just required under policy to have swim checks happen at camp. If we have any updates or changes, we'll definitely let you guys know. Do the troops provide their own mask? Yes. We may have an opportunity to provide some mask from camp, but most likely we're going to need every scout and the troops to work to make sure that scouts have masks for every day of the week. And so not directly on the troop themselves, but the scouts need to make sure they have masks with them as part of their packing for the summer. Can the first slide be put up? Sure, Sean. Would you like me to do that right now, or I can pull it up later? The first slide, I believe, is this the one you're looking for? About masks. Okay, I don't know if we have a specific slide for mask, unless you're looking for the phase 4 guidelines of COVID here. Yeah, there you go. Okay. This video has also been recorded, and so ideally we will have on the camp website the recording of this meeting as well. And I believe it's being streamed to Facebook Live, and so you'll be able to see it at different places this presentation. All righty, next question. Can brothers tent together if less than 2 years apart? I believe the answer is yes. So if you have two brothers who are within 2 years of age and they live together, they are part of their same, COVID bubble, and so they would be able to tent together, yes. Are we doing campsite cooking meals on Wednesday and Thursday within the campsites?
To keep things consistent and with the state of Illinois asking us not to use regular hand items, we want to keep it consistent and serve this year all meals from the dining hall. So you will not be required to do campsite cooking. And for some troops, that's maybe a blessing. For some troops, it's a curse, but just to keep things consistent and safe, we're eliminating the campsite cooking for this upcoming summer.
Thank you, Lee. We also got a bonus question that came in. It says, what if the scouts already have all of the merit badges available in an area? That is a distinct possibility underneath the pod schedule. And so the plan in place is that each director will have a set of potential other activities or things to do for a scout if they've already earned those merit badges that the pod as a group have already decided. And so we may be working with our unit leaders to kind of assist with this, but it might be fun activities, games, or scouts are also encouraged to be able to do any self-study or independent work with a different merit badge potentially. And so we want to work with you. We want to go above and beyond to help the best we can with the structure we're given. So thank you for that question. Under phase 4, what will the Canyon Ranger program look like? The Canyon Ranger program will be set up with the Eagle Required as one program session. And so we'll have our older scouts that want to go with Eagle Required go there. And then the younger first year scouts or anyone that wants to go to Canyon Ranger may. And so we plan to have a set of particular sessions from Canyon Ranger that the pods can pick. On our provided schedule, we gave a short list sample, but that may change greatly over the next few weeks. And so the troop or the individual pod will decide what requirements they want to focus on over their 4 hours in Canyon Ranger. And so if an individual pod wants to be able to focus on knots and lashings more, they'd be able to do so. Or if they want to focus on first aid, they can. And so there will be options available for the pod to pick within Canyon Ranger based on the group's needs. So more information will come on that. But that's a great question. Thank you. We have parents who want to pick up their scouts for a baseball game. Will it be possible for them to check out their scouts for a few hours? That is a great question. Dick Lee, have we heard of specific guidance with?
We have not received any guidance from local authorities on that, nor from our risk management committee. That's a question that we will do our best to come up with an answer and post that, but we don't have an answer or clarification on it at this point.
Thank you for your question. Will this presentation be available to the leaders? Yes, we plan to send out the information, whether it's a video or if you want the PowerPoint itself. We're being asked about a vaccination card. I believe when it comes to the medical checks at the Health Lodge on Sunday, we'll be asking as part of the physical if you are vaccinated. I currently do not know if we need to have that vaccination card as requisite proof. It seems straightforward to me, but we might have to check with our risk management committee and with our health officer. Dick Lee.
If at all possible, on the physical form itself, the last line says other inoculations. And if you could record the type of vaccine that the person has received and the dates that those were given would be sufficient. If you have the ability within your troop to make a copy and attach that to the actual physical as part of the paper copy, that would even be better.
Great. Thank you, Lee. Yep. We will provide the presentation out. Female youth for the shower, that they will be treated just the same as all of our scouts will be, that there'll be a dedicated shower time available for them. We can discuss more specifics when it gets closer based on the individual guidelines recommendations. Procedure for campers arriving Wednesday instead of Sunday. That's a great question. I believe that we'd still have to go through these same COVID safety checklists and everything, make sure there are no symptoms and everything. We're asking the quarantine in advance, the self-check for symptoms. So the policy should be the same. Of course, being able to integrate with your pod will be something to consider when it comes to Sunday check-in, since we expect the troops to know if we have a scout coming in later in the week. And so they'll be part of the total roster. That's something that can be addressed with Dick and Lee at the office when it comes to Sunday check-in. Yes, this presentation will be made available. So if your scouts don't want to do the pool, we have with some of the areas under the phase 4 pod program that they can kind of pick there between lakefront and pool. And if they don't want to do specifics there, we hope to be able to offer an individual activity nearby, still supervised, that isn't there. So your scouts will not be required to go into the pool or lake, for example, if they do not want to. Can a person with special food requirements store their food in a camp fridge or freezer? That's a good question. The answer we believe is yes. We'll have to check with Bruce, our camp cook, to make sure everything's all good. But as per usual, we'll be able to take care of any of our food or special dietary needs, as we always do. If a pod schedule, what happens if the scout has all the badges? I believe we've answered this question. Thank you, though. Can you put up the slide with the colored schedule grid? I can. It's also available on the camp website. If you go to canyoncampbsa.org, click on the resources tab, we do have a schedule up for our draft phase 4 schedule, and we do have it up for our phase 5 schedule. So you can compare and see it there. That colored schedule grid will be part of our phase 4 schedule on the website. With phase 4, will merit badges be completed in the session schedule? It depends on the specific area, but the answer is generally yes. With climbing, for example, climbing merit badge is fairly strenuous with a lot of requirements and a lot of belays and climbing sessions. And so that would be an example of a specific merit badge we feel is not able to be achieved at camp. Scouts will be able to complete a lot of the requirements towards the merit badge, but instead of offering as a merit badge, we're giving the opportunity for scouts to do climbing at that time and working with our climbing staff to have the fun with it without it being focused on the requirements themselves. So there will be a couple opportunities for that where we'll be focusing on just the activity and not as much the merit badge. But in general, the plan is to have the scouts be able to earn merit badges as always at camp. Will pods be all female or all male, or will they be mixed? I believe the pods are going to be single gender in most cases. Right now, with the way Scouts BSA is set up, each individual troop is either all boys or all girls. And so there may be a case where we have a girls troop and a boys troop together as part of a pod. But there's also, depending on the numbers of how many scouts we have, we could have an all girls pod and the rest be all boys. And so I believe right now we're focused more on the troop numbers and how those are set up as opposed to segregating by gender. What programs are available for both first time to summer camp scouts and higher ranking scouts? Great question. We discussed earlier our Canyon Ranger program. It's a program that allows, especially those first year scouts, to be able to earn a lot of different rank requirements during their time at camp, kind of helping them work towards their first class badge as soon as possible. So not only do we have the focus on the rank requirements there, but we do have a Pioneer Potpourri program. Pioneer Potpourri / OWL will be one of those program sessions. And so our Pioneer Potpourri program is like a fun activity area that all scouts can do. And then our OWL program is our older scouts program. And so it's kind of high adventure-esque activities. And we say that if you're 13 years or wiser, you can participate in OWL. And so your higher ranking scouts can earn Eagle required merit badges during the different areas at camp, and they can participate in the OWL program. Thank you for your questions. Going through these. I got a question. How soon can boys prepare for merit badge prerequisites? So ideally, we'd have an updated list of the different prerequisites available for the merit badges going on at camp. As we approach closer, we think we'll have a better idea of what phase we're going to be in, and I'll be working with our individual area directors to see what they feel are the best requirements or the best for prerequisites for each badge. There is a info sheet on the resources tab at the camp website that has prerequisites available. However, that's for the phase 5 schedule, not phase 4. Ideally, it should be mostly the same, but there might be some key differences if we are in phase 4 pod program approaching camp. So thank you for the question. This is a great question I see next. It might be a youth protection kind of question. If a troop has a boys and girls troop, and if the troop has one male leader and one female leader, will we need more leaders? Ooh. You guys are asking great questions.
Yeah.
You would have your 2 deep leadership. So I would say because more than likely if they're a boy group and a girl group troop that's connected and you're sharing leadership, I saw a couple other questions with the same thing. that campsite wise, that's not gonna be a problem. But what will be a problem is when we get into the pod system, if we go with an all female pod, they may not be together pod wise, but campsite wise, they probably would be okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your great questions. We're going through the list here. If in phase 5, still no campsite cooking, just looking to be prepared. Great question. Will we be doing campsite cooking?
I don't see this.
No, I do not believe this summer at this time we'll be doing campsite cooking for this summer. Thank you for your question. Yep, we will be sharing this presentation. We will not be doing campsite cooking. I'm going through all these questions you guys are presenting here. Are you allowed to make or cook late night snacks in your campsite, s'mores and such? Oh, yes, you can. You have all the s'mores in the world that you'd like to do. It's important to build troop camaraderie, have activities for your troop. And with our schedule during phase 4 with pods, you'll especially have some evening time together where you guys can bond as a group and spend time together. So s'mores sound like a great idea. Does the 30 pod max include both scouts and leaders? Yes. That regulation does not differentiate between youth and adults. And so it's 30 total individuals, not just youth. Yep, I see that question twice. Great questions. We got a question about being concerned about new scouts being split from troop and not mature enough to be separated from known scouts and leaders. That is a great question. When it comes to a very, very large troop being potentially split between 2 pods, we believe this will be a very rare case for most troops. But in that event, I believe we'll be working with the troop leadership to decide how they would like to split their youth. And so it'll be up to the individual troop on how any of those splits would be done. And so we can make sure that we don't have our first year scouts separate from the rest of the troop with somebody else they don't know. It's important to be able to build that sense of trust and comfort knowing the people that you're with over your week at camp. So we'll make sure that we try not have new scouts split from the troop. Can a parent leader and son scout tent together, i.e. living in the same household? I do not believe that can be done due to our 2-year age difference when it comes to tenting in a camp. Dick Lee, do you want to add anything further?
That's the rule.
That's the rule. Thank you. This pod badge system, do scouts need to go to sessions as a group? Yes, that's a great question. And so, yes, we want to make sure that that group, that pod, they are sticking together as they go from each session one to another. And so we're not having any sort of intermingling between other pods. And so you might have a case like with the Eagle Required and Canyon Ranger program, where you might have a pod split to be able to go to their individual merit badges or activities. But in general, they will not be intermingling with other pods. And so we'll be communicating any splits like that with each individual area and the staff there.
That's checked.
Yeah. Yeah, please definitely check in with the office when it comes to any concerns, and we work with the health lodge staff to make sure anything of concern that we can't answer is taken care of. Is quarantine required if scouts and adults are fully vaccinated? We do not think so. Under current guidelines, if you are fully vaccinated 2 weeks after your second shot, or if you have the Johnson & Johnson shot, quarantine will not be required. But of course, please evaluate your symptoms. If you are feeling sick, it's probably not best to be at camp. We have another great question. If arrivals are to be scheduled, what happens if the troop isn't able to get there at that time? Ideally, we'd like to communicate with each individual troop to make sure that any sort of assigned time window works for that troop. And if we have an individual troop running late, for example, where they arrive really early, we might be able to make a switch or be flexible. It's going to be very hard to make sure that we're keeping our pods over 30 feet apart and going through each of the Sunday check-in spots. How are you handling individual medication requirements? I believe it should not be different from previous summers. Our current policy is that when a scout comes into the health lodge, it's one at a time coming in to get their medicine. It's brought in during Sunday check-in, and we store them. Each scout has their medicine in an individual Ziploc bag, kept safely within the health lodge. And so that system should be the same, except where they're wearing a face mask when entering the health lodge and working with our health officer. If in phase 5, will there be an OA ordeal? There will not be an ordeal experience at camp. We will have call outs happening for any scouts that have been tapped or called out to go into the Order of the Arrow, but we will not be able to do any sort of ordeal at camp under phase 4 guidelines. But for phase 5, we'll have to check with our lodge leadership to see. Should we bring blank copies of the blue card to be filled out depending on what the troop chooses for the session? Yes. Yes, it's always great for our troops to have blue cards. If your troop does not have blue cards set aside in advance, you can always purchase them from our training post. But usually most troops would bring that, so that way your scouts earning the merit badges throughout the week are able to get all their paperwork taken care of appropriately. Could leaders make coffee at the campsite? Oh, yes, you can. You are more than welcome to. We have some unit leaders that really love our Canyon Camp coffee made in the dining hall. And so when we were discussing coffee earlier, that was for those who specifically want that, but you're more than welcome to make your own coffee in your campsite. Another question on here. We do have our OWL on the pod schedule as well as Eagle required. Those are going to be separate. They will not be at the same time. So that way your older scouts are able to attend both Eagle required and the OWL program stuff at separate time sessions. Yep, we've discussed shared leadership. I see that question again about the phase 5, specifically with the OA ordeal. We'll have to check with Lapio Lodge, the leadership, and our advisor there. It's a possibility, but we are unsure at this point. So we hope we're able to achieve it as normal. Thank you for the compliment in the chat. You're doing great. Appreciate that. Speaking of YPT, saying your individual charter organization requires additional training for your leaders. Splitting scouts into pods may cause conflict with our additional policies. For those specifics, we can definitely address those one-on-one. So if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to Dick Lee or myself. Otherwise, again, I think the splitting of pods is going to be very rare. Unless your troop is over 30 individuals total, we're trying not to have any splitting occurring. Are unit leaders required to follow their pods at all times? That's a difficult question. The answer is yes, that just like a scout, we have to make sure that those pods are not intermingling. However, if individual unit leaders want to stay social distance and kind of mosey their way around camp, or for example, you're visiting me at the big oak tree for office hours to discuss, you are able to visit with me, social distance, of course, without being with your pod directly. And so as long as you're staying away from an individual pod, that we're not violating that bubble of safety, it shouldn't be an issue. We always like the buddy system. But I think we've discussed the medication dispensing previously. Another question, we're hoping to hit phase 5 by June 11th, which would be right before our staff starts arriving at camp. We will see what happens though. We're very hopeful to see that achieved, but we are unsure. Oop, I'm scrolling a bit much. Give me a second, people. With meds, can the adult leader give the scout their meds? The answer is no. We are very specific about having our health officer who is trained to administer those medications appropriately. For any specific concerns, feel free to consult between the scout and our health officer when you arrive at camp with that medication. But in general, we want to make sure that we have on record what's going on with any medication. Is there a phone number an arriving troop can call in event of a traffic or other reason to be late? Yes, feel free to call the camp phone number. Dick Reynolds has it memorized. What's the camp phone number, Dick?
It's 815-492-2175.
Thank you very much, Dick. Yes, feel free to call camp and let us know, or an email in advance as well. We can make do with that. Can you store your insulin in the health lodge? It's a question for our health officer, but I believe the answer is yes. Is there differentiation between vaccination and actually having and recovering from COVID? That is a great question. I cannot speak to the specifics of that. We may have to consult the individual Illinois policy. We are not requiring any scouts and leaders to be vaccinated at camp. That is not something that can be done. And so for those who are not vaccinated for whatever reason, we will have to make do with that. We strongly encourage vaccination for those who are able, but it's not something that is required by law and or policy. And so having COVID previously and recovering is considered different, I believe, from vaccination itself. It will not count as the same. If in phase 4, how will the scouts cash be handled if split? Good question. And so if that's the case, the individual leadership for the troop would also be split. And so you guys would be able to work that out between the unit leaders of each individual troop and their scouts within the set of 2 split pods. Yeah, it's very good to make sure your scouts are taking care of their money, teaching them good financial stuff. Oh, we have a great question. Will there be Zip Bird sightings? Oh, you bet. Zip Bird has definitely missed us over the last year. He gave us a hard time last year, and so we'll see what happens, but I'm sure the Zip Bird will make an appearance. What if the phase moves, or the state moves from phase 5 to phase 4 during the week at camp? That is a very real concern. If that happens, we're going to have to work with our directors, our leadership, and council professionals to make sure that we are able to transition. Under my best judgment, if some sort of switch happens like that, it's not going to be in the middle of the week. It most likely would be like an update that comes out on a Friday. And so that would take place effective when that comes out for the next week, most likely. But we will be able to address those individual things as they come up. I wish we could be able to prepare for every individual outcome in the future. Will this Q&A be available in print? It's a great question. I do not believe that all of these individual questions and my answers here will be available in print. But this recorded video will be available, and I believe we could potentially obtain a transcript and or use some sort of transcript software with this video to be able to print that out. But that's a good question. Okay, we've gone through a lot of great questions, everybody. Thank you very much. Last call for any questions before Dick, Lee, and I send you guys off for the evening. While waiting for questions, Dick, Lee, did you have any things you wanted to share with our lovely camp leaders?
As we all know, we've grown up and lived by the 12 points of the Scout Law, one of which is a Scout is helpful. And for you, the unit leaders, certainly this is your opportunity to be helpful to the camp staff to pull off our summer challenge. Staying with the pods if we are in phase 4 is going to be very important to maintaining and rotating the groups from program area to program area. And I guess if I had the power, I would add a 13th, 14th, and 15th point today, that of being understanding, being patient, and being flexible. This is an experience that all of us are going through that we've never encountered before and hopefully never will again. But we want to do the best we can to give you a good experience and carry on that spirit of Canyon Camp in 2021.
Thank you very much, Lee. Dick?
Again, thank you for all the questions and stuff. As you come up with more questions, please feel free to email us. We would be more than happy to answer your questions for you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Dick. Thank you again to our camp leaders for being here today. We appreciate you giving us your time on this Sunday. If you have questions, let us know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your afternoon. We look forward to your questions, and we're excited for a great summer camp. So take care. You're welcome to the people saying thank you. All right. Good evening, everybody.